Good afternoon and welcome to Mountain Harmony Gardening. I'm Kristen. Today will be the fourth and final installment of our series on the changes that we're making to our garden beds. This is our new bed that I've been telling you guys about. We used to have that Harbor Freight greenhouse here and it just wasn't working, so we had taken it down and we put up these cinder blocks because we found they worked really well last year over there. So we decided to put them all around here and we bought them all throughout winter. So we go in and we get a couple and then we get a couple more to try to spread out the expense a little bit. And then we buy a bag of soil, and by the time the spring came around we had everything that we needed to make this garden bed. And we took down the greenhouse in the spring as well. So we're not going to make any changes to this bed because I really like it. Just having it up about 8 inches or so off the ground and filling it with the garden soil, everything in this bed did great this year, other than the carrots got a little shaded by the zucchinis because they did too well. So the only changes I'm going to make to this bed next year are to the plants. I have decided that I'm going to move the carrots and the beets somewhere else so they get a little bit more sun, and I'm just going to do zucchini and yellow squash in this bed next year. And I'll probably plant a few marigolds in there as well, and of course I'll use the pockets around the outside because I really like that. But as far as that goes, we're not really going to change this bed. This is my shady bed. This time of the year, with all the leaves off of all the trees that are around us, it doesn't look like it. It's in full sun. And I think that's why my kale and our collard greens are still doing so well, is that about this time of the day, through the rest of the day, it gets full sun. And it's the only time of the year that it does. So this part of the bed does get a little bit more shade. Back here, you'll see that my plants start to get smaller and smaller as they go back here. And this part of the bed is almost always in shade. So I'm having a challenge growing back there. So I'm gonna have to find some more really shade-loving vegetables to plant back there. I might try some bok choy next year, but I also want to make sure that this bed is really full and I'm growing more of a variety, because right now we only have one kale plant and the rest are collard greens. I'd like to have more of a variety of kale in here next year and maybe even try some lettuce in here next year as well. The only other change that we need to do to this bed is to fill it up with soil. So it's not a change to the structure. This bed works great. It looks great. It's all recycled material around the whole entire thing. And I think it goes really good with the decor that we have on the shed. This area of the garden, we've had the bench sitting here for a couple years. This is Donnie's granny's bench, and we happened to get it after she had passed away. And we're going to be refurbishing it next year, and it'll find a new home in the garden, because I want to put in another raised bed right here. This is one of the sunniest locations in our garden, but the only thing that grows in the soil underneath the bench is dandelions and violets. The grass will not grow under there very well, and it's really gravelly, and that's kind of this whole entire strip along the side of the house going all the way into my Japanese garden. We just can't get anything to grow really well right here because it's just, we'd have to dig out all the soil. So what we decided to do was, I was talking about getting one of the Birdie's raised beds from Epic Gardening. They're $200, and I try to keep our garden pretty reasonable, and I like to use a lot of recycled materials in our garden as well. So we have a couple of corrugated metal pieces on the other side of the house with my junk pile. And I'd only have to buy one more piece to make a corrugated metal raised garden bed here. And I think it would go in perfect with kind of like the theme that we have going in our garden. Plus it would be recycled, and I could do hugelkultur in it, and I could fill it with logs first and then fill the rest of it up with soil. I would really like to make this a flower bed and possibly put in some herbs like some basil in here, some rosemary, because rosemary does not survive in our climate. I'm surprised it doesn't because my lavender does, but I put in several rosemary bushes and they all die. But I want to have something colorful. This is our bedroom window here, and I want to be able to look out into the garden and see something colorful. Not that my vegetable plants aren't pretty, because I do enjoy them, but I want a little color in the backyard. So that's what we're going to do in this area. This area of my garden is my Japanese garden, and it's probably my oasis. I normally have my hammock stand up here, so it's kind of a little sad looking right now because everything is gone to sleep for the winter and my hammock is put away for the winter as well. But it's still my favorite part of the garden no matter what. I love our trellis that we built. We went out into the woods, we cut down all the branches, and the only thing we bought were the screws for it. And my honeysuckle, my clematis, and I have a goji berry down here too. Love it. So as we walk into the garden, this area right here gets a lot of shade underneath my dwarf weeping crabapple, and all the way over here this gets a little bit more sun, but I have such a hard time growing anything here. My Lucifer plant doesn't really flower anymore. It's not happy. I've tried putting in some gladiolas. They're not happy. The iris doesn't look too bad. The hostas kind of didn't do great. I've had decorative grasses here. Everything just dies, and I know why it is. It's because this area used to be a sidewalk, and when we were actually taking out the sidewalk, I think we pulled a big 5 pounds of nails and screws out of this area. This soil is just, it's garbage. I mean, literally, there's garbage in the ground. So what Donnie and I have been talking about doing is digging this whole area up, getting pretty much past where this big rock is, taking it all out and putting in a pond. I've seen how ponds really bring in the wildlife into your yard, and it's just a nice feature to have. You know, we'd have running water, you know, so there'd be like maybe a little cascading waterfall into it so that it recirculates and we don't get mosquitoes. We don't need any more mosquitoes than we already have. And I want this to be a tranquil area, and it would also help solve the issue that nothing grows here, because we could put in pond plants too. So that's my transformation for this garden. The other side of the garden, on this side, it got so full this year with all of my herbs and our nice apple tree and the gladiolas, and now I've got some irises in there. Nothing really needs to be done here. This garden bed is just fine. Even though the soil's bad over here, it's not as bad as where it is over there. There isn't trash in the soil, it's just pretty rocky. So this side, we're gonna leave alone.
So Kristen and I built this trellis about 5 years ago. We did it at the exact same time we did the arbor in our Japanese garden. We just went up to the woods and got some scrap wood laying around. And we built it. Last year it started falling over and we tied it to the fence. You can see how wobbly it is. So its time has come. So in the spring we're going to cut the raspberries back to about maybe a foot tall. Delete that. And the new trellis we build is going to be about 8 foot wide. It's going to be twice the width and about the same height. And maybe put like a third post here in the center. So it'll be 2 on this end, 2 on this end, maybe 2 in the middle. We haven't really drawn up the plan, what we want yet, but that's the route we're going. And then I'll stain it to match the fence, and it should look really good.
I know that sounds like a lot of changes for our yard next year, and it probably is. We may not get all of them done, but we'll try. And what we're going to do this winter is we're going to start buying some blocks, buying some soil, so that we can spread it out until next spring, so we don't have to do this cost all at once. It's a little bit easier on our budget. So I hope that this 4-part series has given you guys some inspiration to make changes in your own yard. If something doesn't work, it's okay. You're allowed to make changes. And plus you find out new information all the time. I am constantly learning about my garden, and I want it to keep growing as long as I keep living, pretty much. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it a lot. You guys are awesome. So please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, all that stuff I ask you to do every single video, and I'm sure other YouTubers do too. It really does help out. So happy gardening, everybody, and I'll